Hi, Yvonne. Well, thanks very much for joining us on Gift Aid Awareness Day to go through some of the more issues around gift aid administration. We'll be covering kind of three main things here today for people who are kind of brand new to gift aid and looking to claim it. On the one hand, registration. So the stuff needs to be done prior to claiming, actually making a claim itself. And then finally, but by no means least, looking at declarations. And then the very last slide, we'll look a little bit at some common errors to avoid. And to go through that, my name is Richard Sagar. I'm head of policy here at Charity Finance Group. I'm kindly joined by Rachel Cooper, who's principal at Welbeck Accountancy Services. Has a wealth of experience looking at issues around gift aid, done numerous trainings for CFG in the past, and has actually recorded videos on gift aid administration, going through all the kind of pitfalls as well. Worked with many small charities, worked with the Small Charities Coalition, and has got a wealth of experience in this area. So we're delighted to be joined by her today.
Thank you very much indeed. Right.
Wonderful.
Should we kick off? I think we should. So, gift aid administration. We are, as Richard said, we're going to start with registration. So, I will be looking in two directions. I'm a two-screen person, so if I'm looking over there, I'm looking at my slide just to remind me what it is that I'm trying to say. So, looking at registration, which is, it's quite a convoluted process to go through, but as with all things gift aid, just be calm about it and it's okay. There's nothing there that is difficult for you to do. It just takes a while and the details are a bit detailed, I suppose. So I think we'll start with a bit of background on gift aid, and this is going to turn up again when we do declarations, if you're with us for the declarations bit, and looking at the standard requirements for claiming gift aid, for getting gift aid. So gift aid has to be money, a sum of money made to somebody recognised by HMRC. So this is the bit about registering with HMRC. So it's not just being a charity with a charity commission, but it's about being registered with HMRC from an individual who's a UK taxpayer. And there's stuff about how much income tax that taxpayer has paid, and they have to make a gift aid declaration. That's why we're covering that. We're not covering the benefit rule, which is the really fun bit of gift aid, because we're doing the admin today. And then the charity has to be able to provide evidence of receipt of that donation. So we'll talk a bit today when we're talking about declarations and things about record keeping as well. So those are the bits that we are doing on our session today, because I'm just the admin.
Brilliant. So, just a quick question, I suppose, there.
Yes.
And it's worth noting that on for all that information, there is further guidance available about kind of income tax and the amount that needs to be paid. And in addition, anything on the benefit rule has been covered quite extensively by CFG on our website. So please do look for that. And there's plenty of HMRC guidance looking at these issues if it is a specific concern for you. But
yes. Okay. Yes, thank you for that, because because what I should have said as well is this is a bit gift aid 101. This is not, there's so much to talk about, and I am a gift aid bore, but this is just a kind of gift aid 101. So we'll tell you some stuff today, and Richard will ask some good questions. But yes, I will also, I'll point you to other websites and other places to go. And CFG have got really good stuff and good, haven't you got some, you've got another webinar, and HMRC are coming out there to talk and answer questions, all kinds of other stuff. So loads of other places to get information from. So this is just a kind of 101 to start you off.
That's right.
So there's a kind of slightly odd 4-stage process for registration. Steps 1 and 2 you might be able to get through in a oneer, because you have to register your charity with HMRC online, and then you have to get recognition from HMRC, and then you have to register or enroll, and then you have to activate it. So it's kind of this quite long, convoluted process. So we'll take you through those steps. I think you're probably all right with no questions on that. So to kick off, you probably do steps 1 and 2 together. So it's registering your charity with the online services, HMRC online services, and then getting the recognition for your charity from HMRC. And so this is where you start. You start on this form, and the link here, there is a link on here, and the links will be available, I think, alongside the recording. And the form looks like this: start now. It's really helpful, which takes you to a long form, and I'll talk through some bits of detail about filling in the form in a minute, all the kind of pitfalls that there are to filling in this registration form. And it tells you, it's quite, HMRC are pretty helpful. I think all the guidance is helpful, but that might be because I've spent an enormous amount of time with it, so I'm really familiar with it. And so it tells you what you will need as before you press this green button, and collect it all together before you press the green button. So it talks about needing bank account details, needing some officials details. I'll talk through what those officials, who they mean by those officials on the next slide. Dates of birth and national insurance numbers, you do need that. Your registration number, if you're registered with a regulator. Not everybody needs to be. So I used to be treasurer of a PTA, tiny PTA. We didn't have to be registered with the Charity Commission, but we could claim back gift aid from HMRC. Charitable objectives, collect those together, your governing document, all of that kind of stuff. And then it talks about having your government gateway user ID and your password. So that's the kind of, enrolling with HMRC and kind of another bit that you need to have. You may well have done that already. If you do other things, if you employ people, but you've never claimed gift aid, you might have a government gateway already. If you haven't got one, when you press the Start Now button, it will help you you'll have to set one up immediately, straight away. So, and then you go on to this form. Richard, you got any questions on that bit?
No, it all seems good to me. Yeah,
cool.
Let's do it. Let's move on.
We'll go on to this bit, because it is, I would say, when you've collected it's a chunky form, and when you've collected all of the information together, it takes, I think, about 45 minutes to an hour to fill in. You might be quicker at forms than me. So you collect the information together. The bit about the officials, there are two types of official. You've got your authorised officials, and those are the people that are going to be communicating with HMRC. And so for your two authorised officials, you want those to be members of part staff, people on hand, people that you can call on. So it might be a senior member of staff. It might be, if your treasurer is going to do it because they're someone who's a hands-on treasurer. So the people who are actually going to be claiming and communicating with HMRC. So those are your authorised officials. And then 2 to 4 responsible persons. So they're your trustees, your legally accountable people. You kind of can have a crossover, but I think it's more sensible to have separate people to be authorised officials and responsible persons. So you want to get those. They want national insurance numbers for them. It may be that you don't have national insurance numbers for these people if they're overseas. And if you don't, then what HMRC would ask you for would be an ID card or a passport and the country of issue. And you'll have to post a copy of that and evidence of their address and all of that kind of stuff. So if you can give a national insurance number for these officials, that's fine. But otherwise, you have to go through that kind of anti-money laundering type ID. And looking at the evidence of address thing, a thing that I forgot to say is this form doesn't like it if you copy and paste postcodes. I spent a long time getting really cross because it wasn't recognising postcodes. It doesn't like copy and pasting postcodes. One thing that stopped me the first time I did one of these forms is that halfway through you have to give 500 characters on what the purpose of your charity is and 500 characters on public benefit. So I cut and pasted the objects clause of the charity, massively long. So prep that on Word or something like that and cut and paste it. Just make sure that that's the right size, because it's the kind of thing that takes you a while just to make sure that you've got the right number of characters for that. And then the other thing is that it's one of those forms where you can't print it out. You submit it and then they go, thanks for submitting that. And you think, I just wish. So the first time I did it, I think I sent the details off for the other bank account that I hadn't told them about. And so I had to redo the whole thing, and I hadn't saved those 500 characters, blah, blah, blah. I had to start all over again. So print your the confirmation of details page. Just make sure that you've got all of that kind of stuff. So yes, so I think those are my kind of hints and tips.
Brilliant. I suppose one thing around printing it out, I suppose you can also do a print screen if you don't necessarily.
Oh, sorry, that's what I meant. Yes.
Yeah, wonderful as well to
yes,
save paper.
It is virtually, yes.
ESG and all. And then also I was interested with the kind of authorised officials. So suppose you're a small charity and you don't necessarily have lots of paid staff and so on. I imagine the treasurer would be one. Is there anyone else, a trustee, as someone senior at the organisation? Is that probably the best bet to look for?
Yes. I mean, so I have done because I'm an independent examiner as well as all these other things. And so I did an independent examination of a church, and they just had a senior member of the church who did a lot of the bookkeeping and all of that kind of stuff. And so she was one of their authorised officials because she did all the gift aid work. She did all the admin on it. And so, somebody like that, somebody who you as an organisation consider that you would trust to be the person to communicate with HMRC.
So, yeah, I think it's a really good point, Rachel. I think we'd really want to ensure that obviously you've doubled and trouble checked everything to make sure that you're not in the position to having to redo the whole form. So that's part of the advantage of kind of printing screen and double checking it once or twice.
Yes, just making sure that you've got everything sorted. And then because HMRC still do work with paper, you said, are you going to print it out? Well, you do have to print some stuff out because they want you to put things on paper and send a load of stuff off to them. And you have to do that. I've obviously put 28 days all over the place on this slide because within 28 days of submitting your form, you have to post them lots of stuff, notification, so your charity registration confirmation, some bank statements, a set of financial accounts if you've got them, evidence of activities. I think that's a really interesting one. I think that probably if you send off, so for your financial accounts, if you send off your last set of accounts, that's going to have a trustee's annual report, and I think that will have evidence of activities in it. Your governing document and any proposed changes that you have to that. And they
supposing you're a new charity and you don't necessarily have an annual report, is there anything you'd recommend in the interim?
That's a very excellent question. They are lenient about all of that. So you just write
Great.
and you just say, we're a new charity, we're just setting out, we want gift aid. And they'll be, yes, they will be lenient. They'll be lenient about bank statements. They'll be perfectly happy about financial accounts, all of that stuff. So you just explain what the situation is.
Brilliant.
Thank you for that, because that is next one of my notes. So that's cool. And yes, and it says, if you're missing national insurance numbers, posting passport pages and proof of address, all of that kind of stuff. And so you send those off within 28 days. What their phone line says at the moment, actually, I haven't bookmarked in this what the charity's helpline phone number is, because it's brilliant. What they're saying is that they process those within 30 days at the moment. When I first did this talk for CFG, it was 2 to 3 weeks. When I did the talk for Small Charities Coalition, it was 6 weeks. So it's back down to 30 days now. So, we'll see. And so they will process that, and then they will send you a reference number so that you can enroll for charities online. So this is just the beginning of your reference numbers. So they'll send this through the post. Pretty sure.
One thing to note really at the bottom, I suppose, is it says in the on the print screen, the documents by July 2020.
So that's the 28 days.
Yeah, that's right. So in a sense, ignore that date and just focus on the 28 days. Is that right?
Yes. So if yes, I was going to block that one out as well. But if you don't send them within, because oddly enough, getting to the post and getting stuff sorted within 28 days can be difficult because nobody posts stuff anymore.
Right.
So that's why. But yes, they'll cancel your application. If you haven't done it, they'll cancel your application. You have to start all over again. So they send you this reference, and then you can enroll for charities online. So there we go. You've done all this stuff and you're ready to register and enroll for charities online. So here we are. We're a new HMRC page. We've been to that previous one where we clicked the big green start button. And now this is just a screenshot of it. You log into your government gateway account because you've set yourself up with a government gateway account, and you come to this page. Hooray, business tax summary. And so click here. It doesn't say click here on it. That was my addition. So you want to add a tax to your account. You've set yourself up with this government gateway account. You haven't got many services on it yet. And so you want to add a tax to it. So that's where you click here. There's lots of guidance on here. And then the next page doesn't tell you very much because you look down here, you go, I don't want any of those. But if you click onto other taxes, it very helpfully, you've got gift aid repayment claims in the middle of it. Brings you to here. And yes, it brings you to here. And then it will enable you, if you fill in your postcode, the reference that they sent you, and they send you a customer number as well, then they will send you an activation code. Because just in case you thought that filling in one set of numbers would enable you to claim gift aid, it can't. They send you something to enroll, and then they send you this activation code, and they send it through the post. And then if you use that activation code within 28 days, then you can once again, they sent you the activation code. Again, you log into online services. See, charities is listed as one of your services. Hooray, because that's what the last time did. Activate service. Enter your activation code that they've sent you through the post, and then you select activate.
Fantastic.
And you should be registered for gift aid. Ta-da!
Great. So that's, yeah, the initial stage is done, and then we get to the point where you might be ready to make a claim.
You might be ready to make a claim.
Fantastic. So we've registered for gift aid. We're now ready to make a claim. What were our first steps there?
So our first steps there, let's have a look and see. I think first thing to think about is that there are time limits to making a claim, and they are longer than you might think. Years ago, when I was doing the Charity Finance Group Small Charities training, going around the country, we would have competitions to see, and somebody actually had got 4 years worth of gift aid declarations that they needed to go to, and you can. So your time limits for gift aid are, if you're a company or a CIO, it's within 4 years of the end of the accounting period in which the donation was received, and for a trust, and then it's within 4 years of the end of the tax year. So that's the 6th of April to the 5th of April in which the donation was received. We're not talking much about gift aid small donation scheme, but I have included it here because that needs to be within 2 years of the end of the tax year in which the donations were collected. And so I am going to talk a bit about gift aid small donation scheme in looking at more of the record keeping and those kinds of bits and pieces. So those are your time limits. And I think that's a useful thing to know. So, it's a long time to make that claim.
Absolutely.
Cool. So again, there's another big green button, another start now big green button. And there's a link to this, but you can, if you just log into your charity's online account, the big green button takes you to logging into your charity's online account. This can be quite a useful place to start because it reminds you of some of the bits and pieces that you need to collect together. It tells you again that you need to be recognised as a charity for tax purposes, but you know all about that because we've just done the registering for gift aid. And it talks about attaching a schedule spreadsheet. So there are different ways that you can claim gift aid. You can claim on paper if you just have very few gift aid donations and you want to claim. I'm not talking about that today because I think that the people that we're talking to are going to be spreadsheet people. It also says down here, it says you can claim through eligible software. Again, I think if you're the kind of organisation that's got eligible software, you've probably got gift aid experts and people to advise you on how to make your claims. So we're just going to focus today on making a claim using HMRC's set of spreadsheets. So let's have a bit of a look because I think I like their spreadsheets. There is, obviously I like spreadsheets, I'm an accountant. I do know that there is an irony to someone putting something up on a screen and saying, read this, when depending on whether you're looking at this on your phone or a tablet, you may not be able to read it. But the instruction is when you open the spreadsheet, it's a great spreadsheet because the instructions are really clear and really helpful. And so if you're kind of looking at it and thinking, I don't know what box to fill in, I don't know how to do this, the likelihood is that question will be answered in all of this narrative up here.
Yeah.
So I will go through some of that. There's also a link down here because there's further guidance on HMRC's website, again, which is really helpful and just kind of talks it through. It says all these same things, but just in slightly different language. So again, if you want to go back and have another look, and there's a link to it directly on the form when you're filling on the spreadsheet when you're filling it in. So I will go through it because it's just quite useful. So there's some very clear guidance. Don't change the layout of the spreadsheet. And although it looks like a Common or Garden Excel file, then you have to save it. It has to be open source. So you have to save it as a .ods, not as an XLS or an XLS. I won't try and say that again because I seem to be falling over it. And that's just so that they can use it as they want to use it. And then they say things about, not putting in nil or not applicable or any of those other things. And so then the black bit, the bit below the black bit is where you're actually filling it in. And this grey bit in the middle is their examples so that they can show you what it is that you want to do. And so you're filling in all these different bits. So you're filling in title, first name, last name, house name or number. And this is the bits that are interesting. So title up to 4 characters. So they helpfully show you that prof is up to 4 characters and you don't write the full professor or full doctor. That's what you do. The thing about first name and initial and last name, and we'll come up against this when we're looking at declarations as well, is obviously what HMRC wants to be able to do is they want to be able to track back, find somebody's national insurance number and check that this person has actually paid tax. And so if you're claiming gift aid, if you're claiming the tax back, they want to be able to check back that this person has actually paid the tax that you're claiming back. And so you have to be able to give HMRC sufficient guidance that this person, that they can recognize this person, that they can track back to this person. Not helpful if you're in a family as I am. So I am M Cooper and my mother is M Cooper. It's a good thing we don't live in the same place. You'd need both initials in that circumstance.
It's my understanding, I think, that HMRC are quite keen in that case to kind of move towards first name if possible, I think, because for the exact reason you've said, that if you've got multiple M Coopers in a house, it can be difficult to determine which one. So ideally, if you've got that information, I'd definitely put in the name if you can.
Again, that whole Margaret doesn't help either. We're both called by our middle names, luckily. So, but yes, absolutely. So and so as a charity, you might find it difficult to know whether or not you're giving all enough information, but asking for that full information is the right thing to do, because you want to be as helpful to your donors as you can, but you want to be as helpful to HMRC as you can, because you want to be able to reclaim it, and you don't want them to be looking at your records and thinking, this is an organization I would like to go in and audit. That's not what you're aiming for. So
yeah, exactly.
Yes. So and then postcode, obviously that when they're looking at address, mostly they're interested in house number and postcode, but they very helpfully give you an example of what you would do if it's somebody who's giving a gift from overseas. A UK taxpayer giving a gift from overseas is you just put an X in postcode. You don't leave it blank. Then the next box they have here is something called aggregated donations, which is where a number of different people have given small donations. So the idea is that it is probably a bit of a bore for you if you've got a spreadsheet somewhere where you've got loads of donations from people of under £20. It's a bore for you to have to transfer each and every one of those onto this spreadsheet. And so HMRC have said, you don't have to do all of that work. As long as all of them are under £20, you can, and you have got that full analysis, so that if we do come in, you can prove to us that each of these people do exist and have given you a gift aid donation. You can just say these are aggregated donations. They were just one-off gift aid donations. The kind of circumstances that might happen if you had an event and people were putting money into an envelope and writing their name and, an envelope with a gift aid declaration on it, something like that. And all of the envelopes were less, and you collected together all the less than £20 ones, and you had an analysis of that. So you can put all of those together and just put the total on there. And then they also helpfully give you an example where something is a sponsored event. So if it's a sponsored event, the name that you put in here is the name of the person who participates in the sponsored event. And then you put the total amount of donations that they have identified that can be gift aided. Any donations less than £500. If there's anything over £500, HMRC want to see that separately, because obviously they'll want to just check, because that's big donation. They want to keep an eye on it. And interestingly, these donation sizes have stayed the same since I first started talking about gift aid. Now that makes me sound like I've been doing it for hundreds of years, but since 2015, since these forms were filled in, the forms have stayed pretty much the same, and the amounts have stayed the same. At some stage they may look at them, but they're staying the same at the moment. I think the other thing that they don't cover on here, but they do cover elsewhere, is if the same person has given a number of donations. So say here's Professor Henry Housemartin, who's given £240. If that £240 was £20 a month for a year, you are allowed just to aggregate, I won't say aggregate because that's annoying. You're allowed to add all of those donations together and say Henry Housemartin has given us £240. And then the date that you put on there is the date of the latest donation. So if that's easier for you, you can do that. You don't have to write his name down 12 times.
So I was going to ask, so for example, in a direct debit, if someone gives a monthly, it's a perfect example of that.
Yeah, exactly that. So you can do that. And I think it says you must be connected to the internet to access guidance. I think those are the things that I wanted to say about that spreadsheet. Are there any other questions that you can think of just looking at it, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really quick one. Are there any kind of common errors that you see when people fill this in, or is there anything that has been flagged to you before that you think, actually people have tended to make this mistake?
Those are good questions. And actually, I'm only looking at this grey bit and I realize there are other boxes that I need to talk about. But yes, so one of the common errors is this aggregated donations thing, is that people don't really understand what it is and don't really understand how to use it. And so just checking each time, just kind of reminding yourself what it is. And it is covered up here.
Yeah.
And so just go back in and if you're doubtful about it, just check. So I suppose that's the other thing I would say, is always, if you're doubtful. So aggregated donations, people get wrong. The other thing that people get wrong, I'm about to talk about claiming for gift aid small donation scheme, is you fill in the same type of form if you're doing gift aid small donation scheme, but you must claim for gift aid and gift aid small donation scheme on separate forms.
Right.
But because you're filling in the same type of form, then people think that you can claim it all on the same thing, and you can't. And I think it's a really easy mistake to make. And there's nothing really clear on any of the forms that tell you that. So I think it's an easy mistake to make, so please don't. The other bits of thing to say that I forgot to say, so I'm so busy telling you about all of the people and what you say about all of the people, I haven't put the thing in here, is box 1, you put in the earliest donation date in the period of the claim, so that's the box you put in. And box 2 is previously overclaimed amount. I actually, for the first time in the last couple of months, then one of my clients had to put something in there, and it says make sure you show the tax and not the donation. And it's it comes up either if there's somebody who you thought you had a declaration for and it turns out that you don't know where they live anymore, or typically in churches where people have retired and they come and they say, actually, I'm not paying tax anymore, so I can't really claim gift. So you might find you're in that situation, or where with the organisation I was talking about, then they had claimed gift aid and then they realised that with their membership offer, they had offered people slightly more than meant that they could actually claim gift aid on their membership. So they had not to claim gift aid on it. So they had to say that they'd overclaimed. So if you have got your gift aid claim wrong, HMRC understand that it's a bit complicated. And so, you can go back the next time and say, sorry, I got it wrong. I overclaimed by this amount. Yeah. So we're happy to go on to, the next one looks pretty much identical, because it is, if you are doing gift aid small donation scheme and it's ordinary gift aid small donation scheme, not related to community buildings, this all might mean nothing because I haven't explained any of those details. And the answer is, if it doesn't mean anything to you,
skip ahead. Yeah,
skip ahead, deal with it. But if it's nothing to do with community buildings, you fill in the same kind of form. You find all the forms in the same place. It's, they tell you what the forms are, but it's worth knowing that a standard gift aid small donation scheme form, is still just that one that still says gift aid donation schedule. But as I say, you need 2 different ones. Can't work out whether I'm making it clearer or more complicated by saying it.
I think it's quite confusing from HMRC in a sense, because the examples they give, if you look at the amounts, are actually far exceeding what could be the gift aid small donation scheme.
Well, because it's the same form. They haven't set up a separate form. It would be really helpful, and it wouldn't take an enormous amount of time. Perhaps I should suggest it if they just changed the heading on the form, because they wouldn't have to change, very much else on this form, just so that people knew that it had to be a different form. Because they do have a separate form for gift aid small donation scheme if it is relating to community buildings. And you have to tell them some things about the community building, like, where the community building is, what its postcode is, what tax year you're talking about, and how much was collected within that community building. But again, they give you really clear guidance on it. And I'm not going to go into this one so much because I think it's not so common. And if you know about community buildings, you will have gone into it in detail. So, but just for completeness, because I'm a pedant.
It's good to know.
So, yes. So those are the forms. So going right back to that, you've clicked the green start button, logged into your charity's online account. And then the next thing that it will want you to do is, and so yes, it will want you to select services you can use. I was talking to, just for the rest of you, I was talking to Richard today about the fact that at the moment I don't have a pet charity that I can just pop in and do all the claims for, so I can't do that many screenshots on all of them. I've got some older ones, but I think that it looks very slightly different HMRC looks very slightly different.
Yeah.
Some of the screens are the same. So you go into services you can use, and then you go into access service, and then make a charity repayment claim. So kind of gone through your charities. And then the next thing that you do, it asks you some questions about what your claim is and what you want to claim. And so quite nice. Some of them are just yes and no questions. So it's just asking you, are you claiming gift aid? Yes, you are. If you're claiming anything else, and whether or not you're claiming anything under gift aid small donation scheme. And here it tells you that they're not your gift aid donations. So that's quite helpful there. This time I was. So it says you're quite likely, you just select your yes and no. The claim reference number, I think, is where you go away from it halfway through. And so you might have had a claim reference and you have to come back to it. So, but all of these little question marks, it's really helpful. They, just go in and see what it is, just to remind yourself. And then if you are claiming, the top-up payment is just what they call the gift aid small donation scheme. They just call it a top-up payment. It's not, it makes it sound like it's something different rather than just a standard gift aid small donation scheme, but that's just what they call it every time. And so it's saying, are you collecting it not in a community building, or is it in a community building? And then it talks about connected charities. And if the answer to these questions don't make any sense to you, then it's most likely that your answer is going to be no. I think I would say that's not a very pedantic answer, is it? That's quite a casual response.
No, that's useful, I think, and it's worth noting that there's been talk about the small aid gift aid small donation scheme. There's plenty of advice on HMRC and also CFG's website if that's new to you as well, and it'll be covered separately. So yeah.
Yes, because it is a brilliant thing, because it's a bit of free money and it's a brilliant thing, and it's not a massive free money, but it's a little bit of free money for not too much work.
Definitely.
So that's not a bad thing. And then the next page that it brings you to is this about the organisation page. And sorry, this is not quite so clear. So it starts with the name of the charity regulator. So that drop down list for that, your charity registration number. And then this question here about the person making the claim, is your authorised official a corporate trustee? It's one of those kind of questions designed to catch you out. Your answer, unless your charity is managed by a trust company or trust corporation or a trust department of a bank, your answer is going to be no. So a corporate trustee is not a trustee of a company. It is a thing.
Yeah,
it's a different kind of thing. So the answer is likely to be no. And then your authorised official must be somebody who is known to HMRC. And the guidance at the moment, I don't know when I saw this, I hadn't seen this before actually. The guidance at the moment is that you should notify them of any changes a month before you make the claim, to give them enough time to change their names, because, well, we'll come to this when we come to the errors page, but one of the errors that does happen is that they reject, and I have seen claims rejected. They reject claims if the name on this form is not a name that they recognise, because they will only deal with authorised officials. So
a really quick question going back here is the name of the charity regulator. So the options there, for example, would be Charity Commission of England and Wales, Oscar, etc. So yes. For most people, it'll probably be Charity Commission of England and Wales. But yeah, that's the options there. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for asking.
Great.
And finally, that's quite a long and finally, isn't it? Sorry, I wrote the and finally, and then it's got lots of points in it. So then it gives you an option to attach your spreadsheets. It won't know if you've got if you spelt someone's name wrong, but it will know if any of those things that they've told you not to do. So if you try to upload an Excel file instead of a .ods file, it will reject it. So if it's obvious that there are any errors, it will reject it. And so you then correct them and go back in again. It will ask you to confirm details. It's one of those, got to go through lots of stages finally to submit. And I think that's one of because HMRC did a sort of, they've come out, why can't I think of the right word, but they've come out and they've asked people a survey, but it's not a survey because they've gone out and asked people. And one of the issues that people had is sometimes it's difficult to know whether you've actually submitted the claim, or you think you've submitted the claim and you haven't really, because you've confirmed the details, but you then have to do 3 more things in order to submit your claim, kind of thing. So you confirm details, but then you then have to do something extra to submit the claim, and if it asks you to fill in your user ID and all of that. Don't just sigh and sink your head in your hands and think you've got to start again. That's part of the process. They will ask you to do that. And then it's another one where, make sure that you have screenshotted or done whatever so that you've got the submission receipt reference. They will email it to you. So another client, I've got somebody where the woman who does the gift aid religiously emails me all of the submission reference receipts. That's very nice of her. She's got the records of it. I don't worry. And then you wait for your money. And I think that is making a claim.
Just a final question around waiting for money. Is there usually a standard payment period, or does it depend really on circumstances?
Well, I think that's a great question to ask again, because one of the reasons why I didn't put that is that my experience of it is at the moment is that it is pretty quick. It's 2 or 3 weeks, but I don't think that they have a commitment to it.
No, so
I don't think they have a service level agreement. But I think if you're not seeing it within, 3 to 4 weeks, then I think following up is the right thing to do.
Yeah, but if for whatever reason it takes slightly longer, it's not necessarily you won't get the money, but just definitely check on it, as you say, to make sure it's there.
And also, if you're not getting the money, it could be something really simple, like you've got the wrong authorized official, and certainly with one of the clients that I was working with, they hadn't realized from the communications that they had from HMRC that that hadn't made sense to them. The wording of the communications hadn't made it clear to them that they needed somebody else to submit the claim. And so they got the money absolutely fine. So there can be all kinds of reasons why the money doesn't come, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you won't ever get it.
But, no, so no problem with checking in about it and making sure everything's okay.
Yes, and it's it is the best, absolutely the best HMRC department. They love answering the phone, and they're really proud of the fact that they're the one bit of HMRC that give money out.
Fantastic. So we've looked at the administration initially behind it of registering with HMRC. We also looked at looking at the relevant spreadsheets and donation schedule, etc. And now we're looking at declarations. So a really important part of this, engaging with taxpayers. So Rachel,
absolutely engaging with our donors, and it's a lovely bit of donor communication, actually. So just going back to looking at the gift aid standard requirements, just to say why we have to have it is because right there in the middle, the donor has to have said that they're happy for you to claim gift aid on their donation. So it's kind of right in the middle of the standard requirements. So that's why we've got to have a look at gift aid declarations. Now, I did go back to HMRC's website again today because I couldn't believe that this was still what the standard declaration looks like, and this is still what the standard declaration looks like. But what's helpful is it looks like this from HMRC because they want you to know what is required on every standard declaration. They don't think that your declaration is going to look like this. It just needs to contain this information. So let's just go through what the information is. And I think that the weirdest bit about this is what is missing, because what this doesn't have to have anywhere is somebody's signature. So it needs to be generated by your donor. But if you just have this kind of piece of paper, it doesn't have to be signed by them. And I think that's odd. So, but anyway, that is what it is. So, so it has to have, let's start going down the right-hand side, shall we? There is a statement that says that they want their gift aid donation to be, they agree to it, to the gift aid being claimed. So I was getting trouble with my tenses there, moving my sentence, moving the grammatical bits around. And so this particular form of gift aid declaration is for multiple donations. If you follow that link, it goes to that there are different. They've got a sponsor form one, they've got a single donation one, and they've got this multiple declarations one, because it says any donations made in the future or have made in the past 4 years. So you can have one that just covers everything. So firstly, that they agree to the stuff being claimed, name of the charity, that's quite a useful one to have in there. And then a statement in here, can't remember when this came in. It's where I turn into my parents and go, it's very recent, and discover it was kind of 10 years ago. But that it just says, I'm a UK taxpayer and I understand, that the donor understands that they are responsible.
Right.
If they pay insufficient tax, that they're responsible for making that up if you've claimed the gift aid, that it's not your responsibility.
Exactly, because I think for a lot of charities, you not going to know if how much tax the donor pays. So it don't worry about that. It's very much on the individual.
It's very much on the individual, and they haven't signed it, but they have said that, because yes, and it's very important. People think that they're being very kind by adding gift aid, but it's not kind if they're not paying tax. So,
right.
Or if they're not paying sufficient tax. There's income tax and capital gains tax, but I don't know very many people who pay capital gains tax. They're not. That's not the circles I mix in.
Yeah, generally wealthier people will do that, yes, for sure.
Yes. And we talked earlier about. We talked Yes, we did. We talked earlier about the donor's name when we're talking about gift aid claims, and the fact that HMRC, because of wanting to be able to trace back to the donor's tax record, they in previous years or in former times, they were more lenient about having initials, and so it still says first name or initials. They haven't updated their form, even though they are absolutely asking for full name, because they want to be able to trace the taxpayer. So they want their full name and their full first names and surnames, so that they can go back to somebody's record. They want their home address. They will accept their house number and postcode. So that's the basics of what goes on to a gift aid declaration.
One really quick question, I suppose, is around once the donor agrees to the gift aid being claimed. Does it matter if it's a tick or a cross or something else to indicate that? Is it an important feature?
Oh, now you know about this.
I did.
Go on, then you answer this one.
No, I'll pass it to you. You put a tick on the on the form, so it should indicate something. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, I think it's a tick, but yes.
Yeah, yes. I think it's just clearer if it's a tick. So ideally,
yes,
definitely.
That's what they want.
That. Yeah, that's right.
I love that question. But yes, but they're it's quite interesting, because they are really not pernickety. They are really pedantic about some things,
right,
and then quite lenient about others. And so I think it's interesting that they have made this comment about this, because I think it is.
I mean,
clear. If somebody's filled in the details on this and given you their name and address,
it's strange that a cross would mean no. I mean, I suppose in some contexts a cross would mean no, but as you say, why fill in all the details? We're going to do that, but it's as you say, it's a point that it's just worth being aware of, I think, in case of,
that you're keen that they should put a tick. So I suppose that maybe you have a form that doesn't have a tick box, because then you take away that that confusion, that ability for somebody to go, I'll just put a cross in this because it's like I'm voting,
or whatever a little, maybe some brackets just to say please tick the box if yes, or something like that. Make it clear.
Just something to it's a weird old thing.
Yeah.
And then because then HMRC talk about all kinds of different kinds of evidence of declarations that they are happy about. And I've got a link at the end of all of these. I think there are 9 of them or something, examples that they have. Because they are, I think it's about being pragmatic. I think they are pragmatic. They know that what's going on here is a relationship between the charity and the donor, and that the donor wants to give to the charity and the charity wants to get the best out of it without it being a really difficult thing to happen. And I think gift aid is a brilliant thing. I think we should make sure that as charities we don't abuse it, because it is such a brilliant thing. Richard, right. You will have all the stats about the annual amounts that are claimed and the annual amounts that aren't claimed. So part of this process is in order that we can encourage you to claim more, claim what you're entitled to. But so they're kind of keen to make it easier for people to get decent evidence, rather than sticking to this idea of having masses of forms and bulging filing cabinets and all of that kind of stuff, but that they do want there to be some rigor in it. And so declaration, tick box confirmation that they want it to apply, an audio recording. So if you've recorded somebody, computer records, email copy, screen print, a scanned image. So that this is really going back decades.
Yeah.
It's just like, a scanned image. You may have a scanned image instead of the piece of paper, copy of a mobile phone text image. Or the one that I think is quite funny, but I think does stand is, if somebody has made a declaration, if you can confirm that you have sent them written confirmation, then that stands as evidence of a declaration. If I think about the post that swims around in my hall to various members of my family, but so I would say that they give guidance on what stands as a declaration, but I would, when you are thinking about collecting declarations and recording the evidence, I would just stop and think for yourself whether, if someone told you, well, I've sent a letter off to someone, whether you would consider that was evidence for yourself. As here's my evidence. This is my evidence that this has happened. Would it convince you? Would it convince somebody that you respect? I always used to say that I would test it on my parents, but it's not quite so easy to test things on them anymore. But that would, they would be my kite mark when I was thinking about stuff like that. One thing that you can't do is you can't have a sort of member of staff who sits there and notes it all down, because that's then generated by you and not by the donor. So it needs to be generated by the donor, which again is a bit odd because they don't have to sign it, but it needs to be generated by the donor. And so that's where all of the kind of tick boxes on the websites and all of that kind of stuff come in. It's all generated by the donor. So they've made their declaration and they're happy about it. So I think that's the stuff that I wanted to say directly about declarations. I don't know if you had any more questions directly on kind of what declarations look like. I suppose the only other one is the sponsor form one. But people don't do sponsor forms anymore, do they? I haven't seen one for about 1 million years.
Yeah, it's a little rarer, and I think there's guidance available. If
and there is good
people
guidance on that
quite specifically. But I think for the vast majority of cases, I think what we've covered is perfect. I think.
Yeah, no, I mean it's all on Facebook and it's all on those kind of giving websites.
Online,
all online. So then the kind of record keeping, because I think this comes in as much of a piece with declarations rather than necessarily being something separate. So we've talked about what record keeping you might have to have for declarations, and the idea about the record keeping is that HMRC might, I mean, it's like any financial record keeping, but specifically what HMRC want to be able to do if they should happen to choose to audit you, and there's guidance on this somewhere, but what they want to be able to do is they want to be able to look at anything on a form where you say that somebody has made a donation to you. They want to be able to track that back. So what's he called? Professor Henry something.
Yeah.
We want to be able to take that £240 that you are claiming gift aid on. They want to be able to track that back. They want to be able to see it into a bank so that they can see that you've absolutely received it. And then they want to be able to see it back to a declaration. So they want to be able to see that. So they want to be able to see that you have received £240 that's arrived in your bank, and they want to be able to see that it relates to a specific declaration. So that's what your record keeping should be able to do. And so there are people who, the people who have sophisticated software have fantastic record keeping systems as well. But I've seen absolutely brilliant, on paper or on virtual files, just kind of alphabetical files that keep all the letters that you send to a donor alongside their declaration, and records of the standing order, and then just the standard, accounting records that have got named stuff and just have gift aid beside it. So you can make it as complicated or as straightforward as you like. But the kind of stuff that you might keep, if you've got standing order forms for a donor, then you'd have a log of the donations. With planned giving envelopes, you'd probably keep all of those. I was just reading some stuff today about if you've got one-off donations so with the planned giving envelopes, that's right. With those ones, quite often what HMRC is saying is that you might be asked to keep, say, a standard 1 month every year of the planned giving envelope. So you'd keep a log of what all the donations were and what everybody's donations were. But if you're getting donations in envelopes and they're standard ones, they might not expect you to keep all of them. They might expect you to keep, they're saying you might expect you to keep Augusts all the time. Don't know why August, but they mentioned August. That's anyway. So they just kind of expect you to be able to demonstrate that you've got proper records. Again, with a one-off donation, a gift envelope, or a declaration. And then any correspondence with the donor, and what all of this kind of stuff, it goes on to talk about records of benefits with the donors, is if you are claiming gift aid, you need to be able to demonstrate that you've got some kind of of communication thread with the donor, and that they're still happy with all of this going on, and they're still happy with you claiming the gift aid, because you've sort of said it once and you've said it's okay for the future, but things change. Or you might be giving benefits to the donors. You might be, like I said, with this kind of membership offer, suddenly attendance at a conference or something like that. You need to make, they want to be able to see all of that. And that I've seen, the guidance that I've seen says that HMRC recommend checking your contact details every couple of years, making sure that you're kind of fully GDPR compliant and all of that kind of stuff. Just as I understand it, that's a recommendation at the moment. I'd be interested to see, with quizzing HMRC. And I see it, I don't see it as an imposition. I see it as a good way of, it can be a fundraising opportunity, or it can just be an opportunity for appreciation. I think it's a good thing to do, just keeping in touch with people. So I don't think it's an imposition just to be in touch with people and say, we just, we have an obligation to keep in touch with you. That can be the bottom bit of it, but just saying thank you so much for everything that you do. Just want to check we've still got your details right. So all of that stuff. We're all right with that?
Yeah, perfect.
Cool.
Okay.
Right. Some other bits and pieces of a gift aid small donation scheme. There's sort of funny bits in here because there are kind of requirements about it just being cash, and some stuff about people counting the cash. And then there's things in here about so with gift aid small donation scheme, it has to be cash, it has to be banked in the UK, and the donations have to be either cash, well, it has to be cash or contactless, banked in the UK, and has to be less than £30. The denomination of less than £30 of donations have to be less than £30. So you have to be able to have records that can demonstrate that.
I was going to, on that point, I suppose, around contactless is interesting because that's increasingly common, I think, amongst members as a way of, collecting this. People have, these sum up payment cards and so on, even much smaller organizations. And so the idea of two people checking and counting it, I think,
that's if it's cash.
Exactly not applicable in this case. So you'll have that clearly, identified when it's banked, so that it's £30, whatever it might be. So in a way, it cuts out that process a little bit.
It does, yes. And so what you need to make sure is that if you have got, because I know, again, with my PTA, then our sum up usage was not entirely sophisticated, so we had to follow up pretty quickly. Right. We're kind of taking cash on an evening, and we had to follow up very quickly, just and kind of do it manually to go, that donation, that was a donation, we didn't have codes that we put into sum up for to say this was a sale and this was a donation. So just making sure that you're that you can separately identify which bit. If someone's buying a glass of wine at an event and saying have another £5 on top of that, making sure that you've got a way of ensuring that you've recorded that properly and evidencing that you know how to do that. And so, but if it is cash, it's very weird, isn't it? We still do talk about cash so much. It's like the Charity Commission guidance that says make sure that no checks are pre-signed. It's like guidance is still in a world of cash and checks. So I just give you this because that's what it says and also we're going back 4 years, so we're still possible. I know we're going back 2 years. We're not. It's gift day. We're going back. So we're going back 2 years. We're not going back pre-pandemic. So we're not going back to the world of cash. But you talk about how much money is collected and including the denomination of notes. If you haven't done that, if you go back to your paying in slip to the bank from when you've done something, it may well be that you can cobble something together. I did and doing something with a church, then they managed to do a lot of stuff and reclaim some GASDA's money because of the way that it happened, that they just did record their money in a way that meant that they could go back and go, yes, oh look, we do the denomination notes, all that kind of stuff. So you have to confirm that it's collected and banked in the UK, all of that kind of stuff. again, so I have to keep all those records. I've done something about the community building stuff. Again, you just have to say what the address of it is. So keeping the records, you have to keep the record of the postcode of the community building, the address where donations were collected, because you have donations that are associated with your community building. They don't have to be absolutely in the community building. And then you have to say how and when your community building was a community building. So that's the kind of records that you have to keep. So I think that's our keeping records.
Perfect. I think that's a really nice summary of issues around record keeping and also declarations
yes.
as well.
Yes, very much 101. So then there were just a few kind of errors that people come up with, and they're just avoiding these common errors. And I think this was a while ago when there was a chat between Charity Tax Group and HMRC. And so HMRC don't seem to have come up and given us more advice on different things that people make errors with. But I'm pretty sure from having talked to people in small organisations that these are still things that people manage to do and are still things that HMRC don't like.
Right.
And so the kinds of things that people miss out are on the claim forms where they don't fill in the donation dates. So people miss out donation dates where people they put in their charity registration number, not their HMRC number, or vice versa. So making sure that you're doing that, because it's all, but by the time you've got 58 different reference numbers and authorization codes and activation codes, not surprising. We've talked about claims being submitted by unauthorized people, and the HMRC just bounce them. It's not like other places where they kind of just will turn a blind eye. They bounce them. I think we've talked about all of these really.
So just to double check on the claim submitted by an authorised person, to repeat that, I suppose, it will just bounce. They won't necessarily say this is why it's a problem. They will just withdraw the claim.
They will. So when I went back and looked at it, they bounced it and they said something about the person, but it
not entirely clear.
Two different people had looked at it and it didn't make sense to them.
Oh, right.
And it made sense to me because I know about gift aid. And I can't, sort of having said that, I realized I should have gone back in and looked before I raised it. But I do know that they said, oh, great, now you're here. Can you just fix this? We don't know what went wrong with this claim. And I looked at it and I thought, this must be what went wrong with this claim, because there was something in the wording that just made me realize that was what it was. But it hadn't been clear to either of them. And they were very bright people. It wasn't that they, but they were not. So it's not straightforward necessarily. The wording is not straightforward. They expect a level of gift aid expertise, I suppose, in their letters.
That's really useful, I suppose, because it means that if to really ensure, I suppose, that you get it right and you really double check they're an authorized person to try and, potentially cut out any of these errors, I suppose, in advance.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. They still, I can't. Now that I've said it, I say they're still based on their forms, and so although you fill in a form online, they still talk about the number of the paper form that you have to fill in, even though it's online something or other. So yes, we've talked about this one as well. When you're claiming for your gift aid small donation scheme and you're claiming for your gift aid, you have to claim on two different forms, even though they are in the same format. So make sure that you do them on a different spreadsheet. There are issues about aggregated donations. People don't understand what aggregated donations are. So just making sure that you go back and check if you think that you're unclear, because there's good guidance there. Or people will confuse, again, when they're putting the claims on the same thing, people will confuse small donations with aggregated donations, or vice versa. So people sometimes put aggregated donations on small donations anyway. So there's
But the aggregated donations, I mean, in the read this section you put on the form, there is actually a bullet point which specifically covers that.
Absolutely.
It's probably worth saying that in most, you can't speak in all cases, in most cases, they aren't going to be aggregated donations. Most donations you take as a charity, there are certain conditions when it does apply, but it's not like GASs, which I suspect is much more common for charities, whereas aggregated donations is quite a niche example, isn't it?
I think it is.
Yeah.
And I think it was something that would have come up a lot before GASDAs turned up.
Yeah.
Well, where you would be likely to be asking people to gift aid small amounts of money when they turned up to an event, whereas now you would just say, here's a box, please do put some money in it. So,
Yeah.
and you don't need to collect their details. So I think it's, I think it, like cash and checks and all those other things that we talk about, I think it's it will disappear, but it's still with us at the moment. And then the final error that people talk, and it's, we all know about this, is people will update the Charity Commission records and they don't update the HMRC records because they think that perhaps different arms of government talk to each other, but that's not a thing that happens.
Wishful thinking, sadly.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, at some point, hopefully, we'll have in the distant future. Sometime in the
distant future. Yes.
Yeah, I suspect it won't be soon, where you can just fill in one form and it talks to both. But sadly, as you say, we're in the position of having to register with both, which unnecessarily admin for charity professionals. But it's still there with us at the moment.
Yeah. So I think those are the ones that HMRC picked out, and looking at them, then there weren't any that leapt out at me that I thought, oh, they've missed out that one or missed out the other one. These are the kinds of things that people get confused about. So I think that's my kind of Gift Aid 101, really.
Fantastic. So yeah, we've covered everything in quite a lot of detail and talked through registrations, making a claim, declarations, and now looking at some of the more current areas. If there's any further bits and pieces you want to look at, please do look at the Charity Finance Group website, where we've got further updates. And we look forward to seeing from you soon. Thank you. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.